Hi, welcome to DramaMeans. We're talking about the 2024 Hong Kong movie, Twilight of the Warriors, Walled In. Today, drama means action, drama means brotherhood, and drama means nostalgia of Hong Kong's golden era in the entertainment industry.
And first, a little bit of a summary. A young refugee discovers unlikely allies and forges close friendships when he accidentally finds himself inside Hong Kong's infamous Kowloon walled city, the most densely populated neighborhood in the world. But a grudge from the past threatens to derail his new life and force him down a dangerous and very violent path.
So, Ryan and I are still on our summer flick kick, so we decided to do this Hong Kong movie, and we actually went into the theaters to watch this.
Yeah, it's summer movie season. It's blockbuster season. We're seeing massive blockbusters like Dee Dee and Hong Kong flicks.
Well, that's true.
We did see Wolverine and Deadpool or whatever.
Yeah. The one that we didn't like.
The one we didn't like. We saw that blockbuster.
Yeah.
The rest of the blockbusters have been surprisingly
satisfying.
Satisfying. Yeah, that's the perfect word.
Yeah. So we went to go see this. This stars, Louis Koo, Raymond Lam, Sammo Hung, Richie Ren, like your
kind of Hong Kong movie royalty, really, at this point. Like, they're the old guard. They're getting up there in age. They're not the young spring chickens, but so well cast in this because this movie is kind of about passing the torch from these old guys to kind of a younger generation.
Yeah. It's kind of, royalty is very on the nose. I'm not sure Louis Koo is in, or how should I say this? Like, he's in everything.
Oh, he has been carrying Hong Kong cinema on his back for a decade. Like, he's all they have left.
It's
really,
true.
Like, on a consistent basis. You have Andy Lau coming back every couple years. You have Tony Leung coming back every couple of years to do something. The only guy in the shit grinding is Louis Koo.
Well, it also helps that he has his own company now and he's like producing a lot of these films.
And you know what's interesting is the first few movies I saw Louis Koo in were rom-coms.
Yeah.
And so it's so interesting to see him in parts like this now because
Drywood Fierce Fire.
I loved him in those. I liked those movies with him and those like light rom-coms, and I thought he was charming and like, but he was never, to me, he was never the action guy. The action guy, the gritty guys were always the Donnie Yens, the Sean Laos, the Anthony Wong, the guys who did like really gritty, down to earth stuff, and he did the fun stuff. To see him in this is kind of awesome. I mean, I've seen him in other things where he does play those roles, but just the first things I ever saw him in were so light and fun and kind of dorky.
Yeah, and he had such like great comedic timing, and but yeah, he does it all. I mean, my first thing I ever saw him, he was a child. I mean, not a child because he's like older than me, but like he was so young. And back in the TV drama days.
Right, like TV series before his movie career.
Yeah. Before he like tanned all the time.
Yeah, he is a very tanned dude.
Oh, that's on purpose. He goes and does like either tanning beds or like he goes, gets suntanned. But he was like super pale back. Like he was such a like pretty boy when he first debuted.
Well, he's got the gray hair now.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how pretty boy this look in this movie was. He's a good-looking dude.
He is still a really good-looking guy.
No, I really enjoy him. I mean, he's in one of my favorite Hong Kong action flicks, which was Flashpoint with Donnie Yen, where he kind of plays like the sleazeball. I don't even remember his character, but he was kind of like a douchebag, and Donnie Yen beats him up in the very first scene of the movie, and then it's like, oh wait, no, they're actually partners or whatever,
Oh yeah.
And he played kind of that quirky cop to Donnie Yen's like very serious ass kicker.
Yeah, and the thing is, we talk about this movie and like a lot of the past because this movie really, really brings back that nostalgia, especially for me. I grew up watching Hong Kong entertainment. literally Hong Kong Entertainment babysat me as a kid. And so being able to watch this movie and it really like gives you like that sense of like the old movies like back in Hong Kong's golden era.
It satisfies all of the senses, like everything I crave from those movies that came out of Hong Kong that were over the top violent and like really dramatic and big ideas. Like they weren't afraid to take just gigantic swings at concepts and action set pieces. And just this movie is the first movie out of Hong Kong in a long time that made me feel like Hong Kong's back.
Yes.
Like it's like Hong Kong cinema's back in such a good way.
And actually, I was just saying to Ryan, I have lost confidence in Hong Kong cinema for a while. In the last few Andy Lau movies, especially, I was kind of disappointed in like Hong Kong entertainment. So I was actually going to recommend watching a different movie other than this, but Ryan talked me into watching this one, and I'm so pleased because this really, really like it hit the spot.
I think this movie was what I was hoping the Tony Leung Andy Lau movie was going to be that we watched earlier in the year. That, you know, oh, these two like actors from the Hong Kong golden era like squaring off again. And that movie just wasn't well executed. Like I appreciated the attempt, but like the subject matter, I don't really care about financial crimes. Like it was just a little too intellectual to be what we wanted it to be. And this, I feel like, was exactly what I wanted it to be.
Yeah. Well, especially with Goldfinger, Andy Lau really barely was in it.
Yeah, it was a Tony Leung movie with Andy Lau cameo almost.
Yeah.
Not really. It was bigger than a cameo. But
yeah. But in this one, like, I feel like everyone got their part, you know, like, and it just, everyone's character made a difference. So it was just very well rounded. Even though like Richie Ren's character and Kenny Wong's character, like they're like more minor in a way.
And Aaron Kwok as well, but they all make it, like you say, make a difference and they move the plot forward. There's a reason for them to be there. It's not just a one-off cameo. It's a narrative pushing character. I was a little worried because you know how at the beginning of a film, like they're doing the cast and it's like, and guest starring Sammo Hung and featuring Aaron Kwok, and you're like, oh right, they're going to be in one scene.
Yeah.
But they really weren't. They were in the movie where they needed to be in the movie to make the entire story well-rounded and well-crafted.
Yeah. Yeah, the characters were very significant to the movie, and it wasn't just like a walk-on role to like get people to go to the theaters to watch it.
Right. And I'm like the king of watching something and you see like a big actor in it, and I notice right away if that big actor, let's say they're in 4 scenes, but they're in the same location in every scene. They never move from their chair, and they wear the same dialogue, they wear the same costume, and you're like, oh, they paid $100,000 to get Tom Cruise for 6 hours, and he sat in a chair for 6 hours, and they shot 4 cameras at him. But then they got to say that Tom Cruise was in their movie.
Yeah.
And I was really worried that that was going to be the case here. But no, you bring Aaron Kwok back to do action, to do all of these things. Like, oh no, he's in the frickin' movie.
Yeah.
Same thing with Richie Ren. Like, he wasn't a bit part. Like, he's in the frickin' movie.
Yeah. For me, I was more worried that because it's so star-studded and these like superstars in Hong Kong cinema, that I feel like, oh, all the money just went to them. And then the movie was like, it would lack substance, or like, you know, the action would be lower grade or something, just because there's so many like important actors, you know, in one movie. But if this was not the case, like this movie is definitely worth the watch.
I mean, they spent their money on set design, probably.
Oh my god, I mean, the set was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was probably helped with an extended by computer graphics.
Yeah.
But it wasn't distracting in a way that you're like, it's all fake. It felt real enough, the parts you were in, to give them, you know, the benefit of the doubt when it came to like set extensions. Like, that stuff doesn't bother me when it comes to CG. Sure, we could build a 3-story set, and then in computers it's 9 stories because we can just lengthen everything.
Yeah.
Have no problem with that, because the stuff they were in and they were fighting in and they were running through was organic and real and just felt really like cramped and claustrophobic and dirty and just all the feelings you want to get from the set.
I feel like I almost could smell like the set, like like I can almost, like, as Raymond Lam is like trying to make his way through this city or the area that you want to call it. I almost feel like I could smell it, and like the grittiness. I don't know, like I'm kind of like gagging a little bit just thinking about it.
No, I was with you when he first walked into Kowloon walled city, and he turns that corner, and it's kind of like all the food shops, and there's people making dumplings, and there's people doing all these things, and there's like pigs on people's shoulders, and they're like out of the way. It did feel like you could almost smell it. And like when he had to make the dough with the little girl,
it's like the fish balls.
Yeah, the fish balls, right?
Yeah,
you could almost feel how like slimy they were in their hands. Like I could almost, the texture and the glisteningness of that prop.
Yes,
just was like, oh, you can almost feel the fish ball between his fingers.
Yeah, this is like how great it is. It just like really pulls you in right away. And into, like, even if, say, you've never like lived during that era of time, like you can feel it. It just pulls you right in.
Yeah, I was really, really, really happy with. I mean, I guess as we talk about like the throwback, like it just had all those feels as the Young and Dangerous movies. It's the, like I said before, the old Anthony Wong movies, the Sean Lau versus Andy Lau,
running out of time. Yeah.
Just all of those, the John Woo films and the, Hard Boiled, and just all of these things. Like they played with guns, they played with swords, they played with everything.
Yeah. So I love the fact that I get to see Louis Koo and Raymond Lam on the screen again. And I don't really know if they have been in other movies previous to this, like, in the kind of, I don't want to say downfall of Hong Kong entertainment, but like definitely that lull that has been there for a while.
So they're in a downturn, we'll call it. Not a downfall, but a downturn. Because they can always reverse that and find their way back up.
Maybe with this movie. But what I'm saying is, they were once in a movie called Step Into the Past. Or not a movie, a TVB drama. Right? And this was Louis Koo's last TVB series before he went into doing movies and just stayed in movies.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But this was also Raymond Lam's, like, turning point in his career. Before stepping into the past, he was, like kind of bit players. He was side characters. He didn't really make a name for himself. And then he was in Step in the Past, and it was Louis Koo was the mentor, and Raymond Lam was like the mentee, and it just solidified Raymond Lam's acting in Hong Kong entertainment, because he had a turn of this kind of naive, fun-loving guy, and then he turned into the most evil emperor, like most ruthless emperor, Chen Qi-Wang, right? Which is like the emperor that burned all the books of, Confucius, but he was also the one that like made China as one.
The unifying emperor.
Yes. So that was Raymond Lam's like ascension to the next level.
Right.
And then he became like, award-winning, always leading role TVB actor for a long time, and then he moved on to do like bigger and greater things. So it was just kind of fun to see them again. And then also in this movie, it was mentor and mentee again. And it's just this kind of like wink back at like where they began, their relationship began.
Yeah, it was interesting to watch um, them together kind of choose scenes.
Yes.
Like they got to actually spend a lot of, wouldn't call it like one-on-one scenes, but there was a lot of acting with these two and a lot of chemistry that is just like when you have two actors that can sit in a scene and almost just look at each other and you can feel the tension.
Yeah.
You know they're both commanding and are worthy of being there, like opposite of each other. So you have so many times where you have one actor that is so good and has so much gravity in their performance, and the other actor can't really keep up. And here they got to go toe to toe. And again, they're not adversaries in the film, but as far as actors in a scene, they're adversaries. You're trying to pull what you can out of the scene and make your scene partner and bring them up to your level. And it really felt like it was a pretty satisfying dance.
Yeah. And I have to say with Louis Koo, like it's funny because when I started watching him act, he was not a very good actor. And he's like grown so much to now where he's just this kind of master at like creating his characters. And I love that he was playing like an older character. He's like an old man, his hair is gray, but even the way he stands, the way he like kind of pulls in his shoulders to the front and then his butt kind of hangs low, like almost like in a semi like crouch, not even crouch. I just don't know how to explain it, but
It's old man butt. You got old man butt happening. It's happened. It happens to the best of us.
it's just the way he was standing. It was just like, oh, like he is so aged in his character. Like he's like doing his character so well, and then his voice is a little raspy, which is like not how he normally talks, but it's just that kind of like old, dry voice.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I loved it so much. But yeah, I also really like how I know it's funny because I went back and like read some like comments and stuff about how like, oh, they even have superpowers. And I'm like, no, no, no. This is literally like, if you've watched some of the old like Hong Kong movies, they have this like, oh, they can walk over hot coals, and they use these big giant slabs of like stone, and then another person hits it with a mallet, and you use this like, I don't know if it's like heigong, which is like kind of a chi thing, or if it's like bringing like a god's like essence into your body so you can't be harmed. This was like, I feel like this was like, I don't know if it's like an act that acrobats used to do back in the day, or if it was like almost like a belief that they could do this when like acrobats kind of do their shows and stuff, which is kind of interesting to see because like Sammo Hung came from the acrobat troupe.
Mm-hmm.
So it just has this kind of this essence, this cultural like thing that's, you can call it tropes like from old Hong Kong movies. You can call it beliefs from back when like acrobats would perform and they would have to like do this type of style, and all these like dangerous things like getting hit over her head. And then it's like it all the way back to like the different forms and styles of like the Shaolin temple, where it's like Ti Tao Gong, right? It's just these things, right? It's all showing the cultural thing in this movie, and it's like introducing it to the world if you've forgotten from back in the day, or if this is like you're new watching new like Hong Kong movies and you're new to Hong Kong movies or the culture, like it's introducing it to the audience.
Yeah, you have a lot of like throwback to something like the 36 chambers of Shaolin, or the kind of body hardening techniques that the monks would do. I remember, this is a little bit of a side quest here, so go with me, but there's a really bad movie called Kickboxer 5.
Oh gosh.
And in Kickboxer 5, the lead actor is a martial artist, and there's a scene where he puts an tip arrow basically at the base of his neck, and then he leans into the arrow and he breaks the arrow. that actor could actually do that. And that wasn't, I don't think was in the original film. And the actor had said to the director, like, oh, we're doing this training montage. I do this thing with an arrow. And it's rumored that he actually had done it with a spear at one point, where he'd actually put the spear tip against his like chest neck area and then bent into it and broke the spear in half. So it kind of throws back to those kind of techniques of the Shaolin, but also the movie making techniques, because what was so awesome about some of those old Hong Kong and Chinese films was like the wire work. They brought wire work to the world. No one did that. And no one did it better than them. And like people like Tony Jaa just thought that they could jump that high. And so like he's watching these Hong Kong films in Thailand going, man, I got to jump really high if I want to be an action star. So then you had this kid who turns into this amazing athlete because he just thinks Jackie Chan can leap that high because he doesn't understand the wire work. And so it is a cultural belief. It is not a superpower, but it's like, oh, if I really believe I'm indestructible, I can focus my energy and be indestructible. Now, do they take it to the movie, heights and make it a little crazy? Yeah, but that's the fun of it.
Back to the story where it's like you feel that I just love how, like, yes, there is the Louis Koo and Richie Red and Sammo Hung, but like the important thing is that they already had their story and their adventure. And even though like Louis Koo's character, Long Gunfeng, like he had to protect the city, but it was like that thing where it's just like, yes, we're passing the torch. It's up to the younger generation to take over and protect the city and do what's like necessary. And I also feel like there's like kind of a metaphor of like, as we said before, Louis Koo is like carrying the Hong Kong entertainment industry or cinemas like on his back. Like it's time to pass it on,
Mm-hmm.
to the newer. And I have to say, I haven't really found like a newer Hong Kong actor where I'm really into them, And so I'm, like this almost feels like, oh, like Louis Koo is saying, like, we need to bring up like the next generation of actors so we could, work harder in bringing Hong Kong cinema back into the limelight.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like his character, especially the way the film starts, is that this story is kind of that character's epilogue. Like the climax of his story has already happened. The action part, the resolution of his story has already pretty much happened. This is the happily ever after part. Like, and then he retired, he retired from beating ass to be a barber and kind of look after the folk. He's a figurehead now. And now this is the beginning of someone else's story during his epilogue, which I think is like very poignant as it pertains to stories in general, as, one generation, inevitably aging out and moving past their quote unquote usefulness. And they have to pass on the lessons to the next generation so that they can keep it going. And I felt like this was such a great passing of the torch character wise. And also, if you want to go with the metaphor of, hey, youngsters, it's your turn to take over Hong Kong cinema and make, the best of it and see if you can bring it back to its heyday. But I think all that really, really worked overall in the film. And I wasn't sure what kind of movie we were walking into. I didn't know if that was really going to be what we were seeing as they were kind of going through it. It's like, oh, yeah, the height of like Louis Koo's story is over pretty early. So where do we go from here? Oh, I see where the focus is going to be. And it really is on Raymond Lam's character to kind of take the focus of the rest of the film and run with it.
Yeah, I even really I like how the four friends come to be,
Mm-hmm.
and like it's just such it was so cute and satisfying at the same time where like no one told them or ordered them to go like punish that guy,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then but they all
Came up with the idea separately, basically.
yeah, And it was just it's so great, and it's like, oh, and then they bond, and then they become friends, and then they get together and play mahjong. It's just so cute and fitting, and then they just kind of become like these, forever friends.
Well, I also liked the bonding in the mahjong scene where they kind of all gang up on the new guy. And he's like, are you guys all in cahoots? Are you all screwing with me? And they're like, obviously, new guy. But instead of like getting mad and flipping over the table and running away, he's like, all right, fair game. But I'm going to kick your ass in the next one. You know what I mean? And so it's not traditional bonding. We've talked a little bit about like meet awkwards instead of meet cutes.
Yeah.
And this is another example of you don't have to have characters running into each other in perfect circumstances in order to form a bond. It's actually more interesting if they meet under ultra specific but a little bit odd circumstances.
Yeah. And especially with I cannot remember his name and how and like what they called him in the movie, but the motorcycle guy, like the first one to like, meet Raymond Lam's character in the walled city, like
the one played by Terrence Lau.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like that the fact that they like literally fought each other in the beginning, right? To like, oh, okay, we like know that we exist. To now they're like close friends, I just wish that like with the four of them there was a little bit more, so that the audience will feel like, oh, they're close enough to risk their lives for each other.
Yeah, I think that was maybe the movie's biggest shortcoming, was the fact that they didn't spend enough time really fleshing out the bond between all four. You definitely got it the most between those two guys because they had spent the most time together. And the other two, I kind of get, and I understand that's what you want me to get.
Yeah.
I would have just liked to feel it a little bit more. I would have liked them to have to, like, not that I want to go see them do some insane mission or something super serious. I just want to see them accomplish something together a little bit or solve a problem together. Just something that says, oh yeah, no, these are the four amigos, and then like that way when their bond is kind of challenged, you really feel the pull of like, oh man, what am I going to do? But then you really go, no, that's my bro and I'm going to take care of him.
Yeah. I also like that part where Sub-Isio goes back and is like, I have to go help. Like that scene where like Tiger, like, and he's just like, he just says one word. He's like, Ming, which is like, understand. But it's like the short form of understand. So he couldn't even, it's not like Ming Ba, it's just Ming.
It's just gotcha.
Yeah.
I gotcha. But he's been there. And again, back to this 2 generations, is the old timer's been there. Yeah, he wasn't always the boss. He was the young snot-nosed guy that had to go against orders or something at some point in his life. And he realizes, no, this is your fight and you've got to do what you got to do. What am I going to do to stop you? Like, I have my own feelings about all of this, but when it comes down to the end of the day, if I was in your shoes, I would be doing the exact same thing because I have been there. And one of my favorite moments probably in the whole, it's so simple. Like you said, it's so short. He's like, I got to go. And he's like, yeah, I get it.
So I've always liked Kenny Wong. Like, I know he's been a minor character in this movie, but he just kind of like can play anything. And this is definitely because like he's played so many different characters in all of like the different series from TVB. And then he was actually like, he played an LGBTQ plus character in Osan's Love, which is the Hong Kong version or the Hong Kong remake of the Japanese drama Osan's Love. So it's just like he goes from like comedy to this crazy, like gritty actor, like action guy. And it's just.
No, they're all so solid. I mean, it's just nobody shows up on screen and you're like, ugh, why is this actor here? Like even
Yeah.
some of the kind of more action bit part actors, you're just like, they're just kicking ass.
Well, even the little girl, the fishball girl.
Oh, she's fantastic.
She was great. Like, I love, like, the delayed emotional cry.
Oh, yes.
That
Yeah.
was intense.
Yeah. She was great. But even like the bit characters, the woman who kind of takes her in, and the different like townspeople when they're talking shit about crazy man, whatever king, whatever his Wong Bao.
Oh.
Don't make me say it again. If you
Wong.
know, you know.
Wong Go. Yes. Okay.
But they're talking, even the townspeople, they're kind of like, oh, things were so much better before this idiot got here. Like everyone is just playing the part, and it was just so well. Like they cared about everything in this. You can tell this is from a director who cared about every frame they put on screen.
Yeah. You know what I loved? When Raymond Lam's character goes to find the other three, like out on the floating, container or whatever, and they're sitting there, and Subisu's like, now that the four of us are together, we need to do something. And then they end up playing mahjong.
Yeah.
My only gripe about it is I think that it would be more effective and like kind of more fun is that rather than Raymond Lam actually saying like, "Oh, let's play mahjong," it's like he says that, and then it cuts to them just playing mahjong. I think that would be more effective. But I love that that's like their bond.
Mm-hmm. No, I really enjoyed. Like, I wasn't really sure where they were all going to go with that because obviously they had very big unfinished business at that point. But first things first, bros gots to be bros.
Yeah.
Let's hang.
Yeah.
And enjoy this because we know whatever's next is not going to be pleasant.
Yeah. For me, one of the biggest things that's an issue, and it's just like, oh, well, we just have to believe it because they tell us so.
Yep.
Is that it's so weirdly coincidental that Raymond Lam happens to be Jim's son. Like,
whoa, big spoiler there.
Well, I mean, our show is all about spoilers, so if you didn't want spoilers, you wouldn't be listening to our podcast anyway. But it's just so like really like, oh, he just so happens to run into the walled city, and then he lives there, and then somehow
Richie Wren's character gets his name.
Yeah.
And he's just like, oh, I know that I've just now figured out the name of Jim's kid that I want to kill, and that it's this guy's name, and then, oh no, they know who he is and all that. No, it's a massive coincidence.
Yeah.
It is the biggest buy in the entire movie. And the reason it's not that big of a spoiler is they don't really play that much on screen, like misdirect or tension. Like, you pretty much know the second they say, like, I want to kill Jim's son, he's still out there. The wife is dead, but his son is still out there. And then, like, the next scene, it's like, well, my mom died. It's like, oh, well, he's the son, obviously. Like, it's pretty spelled out as they introduce this idea.
Well, it just so happens that Louis Koo always looks at him and then, like, sees Aaron Kwok, Yeah. But it's just kind of like, oh, come on, really?
No, it's a big damn coincidence. You have to just buy it and go, all right, for the movie to work, that has to be a fact.
Yeah.
Could they have done it better? Could they have done it more, with more finesse?
Yeah.
I do believe so. But you're right. It's a big buy, and if you don't like that coincidence, you will judge the movie quite a bit more harsh.
Yeah. But I guess it is based off of a comic, like a manhwa. So maybe it's just that way and they have to have it that way. I don't know. I've never read the comic or anything like that, so I mean,
yeah.
But that was my biggest gripe.
Yeah, I think is like the down side or the negative parts of this movie are pretty few and far between, other than like nitpicking like specific shots where I'm like, ugh, that shot I didn't like, or was like a little too fake or CG or whatever. But
every time a plane flies over the city.
yeah, pretty much that. That's exactly the shot I was thinking of.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple like when he jumps the motorbike and he hits the dude, and it's just like rubber fake CG stuntmen, kind of things. But the coincidence and the lack of bonding with the dudes that I wanted a little more of. Yeah. Didn't ruin the film, but it was just two things. I was like, I think they could have sewn this up a little better.
Yeah. I loved the action in it. I do wish that, I know we complain about like slow motion action a lot. We complain about CG action a lot. So I really enjoyed the action in this, where it's like all the action is so fast, but also like it's all like so real, like the punches, the flips, it happens like a lot of, especially like, I know like Wonka is like a martial arts extraordinaire.
Yeah. Apparently, I know I was reading reviews of this saying like this is the first time he's really been able to showcase like how much of a badass he is. Like he's always been kind of toned down, and it really felt like someone went, "Go at it, big dog."
Yeah. And then like seeing, old Sammo Hung still fighting. And I mean, it's not what he used to be, for sure. He's old now.
And they're doubling him a lot.
Yeah.
But
and like, okay, I know the action choreographer isn't necessarily Sammo Hung, but like there's so much Sammo Hung style in the fighting in this. I can't imagine that he didn't have a hand in the action choreography.
No, he's going to have some opinions.
Yeah, I for think sure. So. Just like downright from like the way the actors punch is so Sammo Hung's style. Mm-hmm. Of like punching, and it's like it's very visible because like growing up and watching like Jackie Chan and Jet Li and Donnie Yen, when they're fighting, they have their own distinct styles of how they throw a punch, and a lot of the actors are throwing their punches like how Sammo Hung does it. Mm-hmm. So it's just yeah.
I mean, I think just being on set for this kind of process before, and with choreographers, action directors, the fight team and the actors, it becomes this like little, I don't know, cabal where everyone kind of gets a say. Like the choreographer comes with ideas, and the people who are actually doing the choreography, like the stunt doubles, will all pitch in and go, actually, like this is really awkward to do. I know it looks great, but this is really awkward to do. And I don't think the actor could do this, and we really want the actor to do this part. And then the actors come in and they have their own ideas. And so it just feels like when it works well, it is just a chaotic mess of perfect, because everyone is just feeling each other's ideas, and you're just building good ideas on top of good ideas. And it felt like that here, where it felt like you have a really talented choreographer, a director that understands action, and then actors and performers that got to bring their own little twist and flair and then pay homage to all these different styles. And I mean, we have to call it the action director because he also is the guy from Rurouni Kenshin, who completely different style, like all on its own.
And you see his styles on how they move, how they do a lot of like the swing slide on the ground one, mm-hmm. and then like the kind of climbing over on the walls and stuff is very his style.
There were a lot of slick things.
Yeah.
And I think that was the thing that really stood out in Rurouni Kenshin so much was, wow, that was really slick. Oh, that's great camera movement. That's great. Just positioning of your actors in a place that makes it all work and succeed. The only gripe I have about the action in this is it felt like sometimes it was a little over-edited, where I was like, no, let me see it for a little longer. And then because I'm old, I always want them to pull the camera back just a little bit and just widen out so I can just see just a little bit more of it. Because everyone wants to be so close to the action and so in the action that I'm like, no, I want to be a little bit further away,
Yeah.
just so I can see it.
And I understand because we're in such a cramped space and it really wants you to feel just as cramped.
Absolutely.
You know, and so I think that was like a choice to make the audience feel like just as uncomfortable in such a cramped and tight space. But with that said, I also thought it was so like dialed in that there were a lot of like things and movements and like hits that I missed because first of all they're like so fast, and second of all because it's so like in there that like I'm like, okay, I missed this move, I missed this hit, and I also wish it was pulled back a little bit, and not that it was, I don't want slow motion, but I do want it to be just a tad slower so I could see everything.
Yeah, I think they really did lean into that frenetic, claustrophobic idea with all the fighting, to make it feel like it was just in really close quarters. Again, and a lot of people really like being really close to the action because it does feel, I hate the word, but it feels very visceral. Like you can feel it, and people really like that. But again, I'm from a different era where you would let action choreography play out like a dance. A lot of it would play in a master, and you just watch people do choreography, and you can see all of it. And it's like my problem with when they show like dancing on television is they just edit the hell out of it, and you just miss everything because you're so focused on the crane shot and the close-up and the steady cam and the swirling. And I'm like, no, just put the camera in front of them and let them perform, and it'll look really cool because they choreographed this in front of a mirror. They didn't choreograph this in front of a swirling camera like it's meant to be viewed from a certain point of view. So that's just me being an old man on the porch going, get off my lawn, you darn kids.
Yeah, and I miss this type of action. We haven't seen this action in a while. Considering the last action we watched was Deadpool and Wolverine, where like everything was just so, and of course it's just so like big and slow motion, so you can like, and like jumps and everything. It's just like all CG. It's just like it takes the fun out of it. And then this one, it's just like, it does feel like you're watching it like up close. And, and just the speed of the punches and like the even the guy with like the two knives, it's like almost like he does it as if it's like the helicopter blades. Like it's just, it's so nice and kind of like just scary too, of course.
No, it was quick and violent, and it hurt. It like the hits hurt, and the cuts hurt, and the sound design was really well done. I mean, it is kind of like, again, going back to this golden age, and like the only movies really doing stuff like this right now were like John Wick, and that's more gunplay than it is like martial arts. They do kung fu, but it's much more of a judo brawly type style. And it's the stunt guys out here who are doing it. It's the Extractions and it's the John Wicks who are doing like real action with real stuntmen and just getting down and dirty and stuff like that. So it was so good to see like the Hong Kong action return to Hong Kong.
Yes. And I also like that it was like everyone got hurt. Like no one was invincible. But like you just felt so attached to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like definitely like a brawl and not some kind of like superhero-ness to everybody. Like everyone just got completely injured. I literally gasped when Louis Koo got sliced up.
Oh, the first slice.
The first slice.
Yeah, that was really shocking.
Yeah.
It came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like Richie Wren did it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, oh! And I don't know if like everyone in the theater was like.
Yeah, no, I heard you.
Yeah.
But I was like, too, you didn't really understand like the severity of it or anything like that, but you just get like that move was like violent and not expected, and just you're like, whoa, and, it has some impact.
And also it was the severing of a, friendship, a brotherhood.
Yeah.
So that it was just that much more impactful. So, yeah, I, as you can tell, we loved the movie.
No, it was a breath of fresh air, I think, and it does mean a little more because we were both such big fans of the heyday of Hong Kong. I think people who are just getting into this style of movie, if you're 20 years old and you're 22 years old, you know about like the Korean wave of cinema, and you know about the Korean action. You probably know about Ong Bak and like the stuff that was coming out of Thailand and the Raid, and you know about these things. You missed when Hong Kong was doing it, and they were doing it before all these other places, and they pioneered so much stuff that we stole in the West, like so much stuff out of your favorite action movies, and the way they make all these Marvel movies and the wires and the rigs, all pioneered out of Hong Kong cinema, and then taken and stolen and perfected. And I mean, Yuen Wo Ping brought over this choreography for The Matrix. Like, these things were defined in this era of Hong Kong golden age cinema, and it's just even feeling it. Maybe if this is just a one-off movie where we get to live the golden age for one movie, okay. I hope that's not true. I hope we get, more films where they're really willing to pump some money into this and make quality films with quality actors and good directors. But if this was just a little peek to go, oh yeah, that's what it was like, it was worth it.
Yeah, definitely. And I know they are slated to do a prequel and a sequel to this movie. I hope they do a good job, and I hope they can live up to this movie in particular.
Well, the good news is the same director is coming back to do all three films. So he's going to do the sequel, or the prequel and the sequel. The prequel, I think, is going to be released first, telling the story of kind of the old timers. And then the sequel is going to be kind of reprising a lot of these roles from this film. And same producing team, I think some of the same writers. And the fact that this one is doing fairly well box office wise across the world means that there'll hopefully be money behind the sequels because they're now a proven commodity.
Yeah. And I'm so proud. I'm so proud we're finally getting a good movie again.
Yeah, fantastic. Really, really well done.
Yeah. So my rating for this is Drinks on the Pool Deck. I wanted to give it a Around the World in 80 Days, but there were just that it's too coincidental for me.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, there's just like a little bit of hiccups here and there, but like for the most part I loved it. So yeah, Drinks on a Pool Deck.
I think it's Drinks on a Pool Deck for me too. I would maybe give it in the buffet line if I just wasn't so geeked out on just enjoying it. Like, as a film, was it like the perfect script? No. Like, it did have some things wrong with it. And then also, it was a little long. I thought it dragged out a little bit toward the end. I was like, all right, guys, time to wrap this up.
Well, they had a lot of fight scenes.
Yeah, and it's a big movie, which I guess all movies these days, like, if going to the theater costs you $20 a head, I guess they're like, we're going to put your ass in the seat for 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
But Drinks on a Pool Deck, for me, it's really worth a watch. And then after you watch this, go back and watch some Hong Kong movies and see, you can like learn the history and see what they were trying to emulate. And because it's just a different brand of action than we get to see.
Yeah, I agree. Our rec for this week is, as I said before, Louis Koo was in it, Raymond Lam was in it. It's called Step Into the Past. It is a 2001 TVB series. It was a transmigration story before transmigration stories were popular, or this is like one of the OG transmigration stories. And it was made popular where, the Louis Koo's character goes, back in time to the historical time. And he, speaks some English and asks for a fork and things like that. And just very like speaks in modern language. And before Step in the Past, you didn't really see that at all. So this was definitely one of the OGs, and then has like kind of paved the way for a lot of these like now popular transmigration stories. And yeah, it's funny, I was actually talking to my friend, and the question was like, would you want to transmigrate great or like travel back in time to, you know, like experience how it was back in the old days? And I said 100% no.
Like old days, or are we talking like 1986?
No, 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 no. Like
Like before the invention of the internet?
like
I'll pass.
the ancient times where like you go poop in a hole and there's no air conditioning, and you'd have to walk like a month to get anywhere. Like
I think that's the thing people don't realize. We romanticize the past. You're like, in America, you'd be like, the old West, where the prairies were just open and free. And you're like, yeah, and there wasn't a rest stop for 10,000 miles. If you had to pee, it was in a bush. If you had to poo, you had some problems. You never talk about that in these things.
yes. Anyways, my friend had said, "Oh, I want to go back because I watched Step into the Past." So that was, one of the things. But so definitely check that out. As I said before, it really solidified Raymond Lam as an actor. It was the last TVB series that Louis Koo ever did. The chemistry between them were fantastic. The story's a little outdated. I know a lot of people are sensitive with like having two wives. This was very popular back in the day, especially like when it talks about like, like olden times when you were allowed to have like more than one wife and concubines and all that stuff. So, so that might not be someone's cup of tea.
Sweet.
Yeah.
And that does it for this episode.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
See you next time.